From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Any single gun law can't solve all these problems. We're going to have to look at mental health issues. We're going to have to look at schools. There are going to be a whole range of things that Joe's group looks at.
As President Obama vows new action on gun control, we look at gun violence from Newtown, Connecticut to the streets of Chicago, where nearly 500 people have been murdered this year, mostly by guns. We'll speak with Goldie Taylor. Both her dad and brother were murdered. For years, she owned a gun. On Monday, she gave it up. Then Rhonda Lee, an African-American TV meteorologist in Louisiana who's been fired for defending her short, natural hairstyle on Facebook. And then to the bribery aisle, how Walmart got its way in Mexico.
In Mexico, an elaborate tale of bribery by one of the world's largest corporations, Walmart.
I never imagined I was opposing such a superpower.
Tan grande.
In April, the New York Times revealed how Walmart's leaders hushed up evidence of widespread bribery by their largest foreign subsidiary, Walmart de Mexico. Now, the Times examines the relentless campaign of bribes behind Walmart's most controversial store in Mexico, a Bodega Aurrera supermarket built in the shadow of a revered cultural landmark, the ancient pyramids of Teotihuacan.
1 in 5 Walmart stores are now in Mexico. Walmart's now Mexico's largest private employer. We'll speak with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist David Barstow of the New York Times. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. 6 more victims of the Newtown massacre were laid to rest on Wednesday. 4 children, a teacher, and the principal of their school. The teacher, 27-year-old Victoria Soto, was credited with saving half her classroom by hiding the children in a closet, then telling the shooter, Adam Lanza, they were in a different area of the school. The principal, 47-year-old Dawn Hochsprung, was reportedly shot dead after lunging at Lanza in an effort to stop the shooting. 6 more funerals are being held today. At the White House, President Obama formally announced Wednesday the appointment of Joe Biden to head a new White House-led effort to reform gun control policies to be outlined in the annual State of the Union address next month.
I asked the Vice President to lead an effort that includes members of my cabinet and outside organizations to come up with a set of concrete proposals no later than January, proposals that I then intend to push without delay. This is not some Washington commission. This is not something where folks are going to be studying the issue for 6 months and publishing a report that gets read and then pushed aside. This is a team that has a very specific task to pull together real reforms right now.
We'll have more on the Newtown massacre and gun control and violence after headlines. Talks on avoiding the so-called fiscal cliff have hit a wall with both President Obama and House Speaker John Boehner rejecting the other's latest proposals. At the White House, Obama told reporters he thinks Republicans continue to hold a personal grudge against him, opposing his plans, quote, just for the heck of it. Obama went on to promise a veto of the latest Republican plan to begin taxing households making over $1 million rather than the $400,000 minimum recently proposed by the White House. He also rejected any effort to tie the fiscal cliff with debt ceiling, as Republicans did last year.
I will not negotiate around the debt ceiling. We're not going to play the same game that we saw happen in 2011, which was hugely destructive. If you go to Wall Street, including talking to a whole bunch of folks who spent a lot of money trying to beat me, they would say it would be disastrous for us to use the debt ceiling as a cudgel to try to win political points on Capitol Hill. So we're not going to do that.
The Justice Department has formally unveiled its $1.5 billion settlement with the Swiss banking giant UBS for the company's role in the manipulation of the London Interbank Offered Rate, or LIBOR, which provides the basis for rates on trillions of dollars in transactions across the globe. The rigging of LIBOR meant millions of borrowers paid the wrong amount on their loans. On Wednesday, Assistant Attorney General Lanny Breuer said UBS had played a key part in the reckless attempt to manipulate rates for profit.
The bank's conduct was simply astonishing. hundreds of trillions of dollars in mortgages, student loans, credit card debt, financial derivatives, and other financial products worldwide are tied to LIBOR, which serves as the premier benchmark for short-term interest rates. In short, the global marketplace depends upon all of us relying on an accurate LIBOR. Yet UBS, like Barclays before it, sought repeatedly to fix LIBOR for its own ends. In this case, so UBS traders could maximize profit on their trading positions, and so that the bank would not appear to be vulnerable to the public during the financial crisis.
According to transcripts released by prosecutors, UBS traders openly bragged about their prowess at rate manipulation and the financial benefits it brought. In one online chat in 2009, a key ringleader in the case was told, quote, "Think of me when you're on your yacht in Monaco." The $1.5 billion fine is more than triple the fine paid by the first bank ensnared in the LIBOR case, Barclays. And paying it, UBS avoids criminal prosecution as well as potentially jeopardizing its parent company's charter. A military court has ruled U.S. Staff Sergeant Robert Bales will face a court-martial for allegedly slaughtering 16 Afghan civilians, including 9 children, in March. Military prosecutors are seeking the death penalty, while defense attorneys have argued that alcohol abuse, drug use, and post-traumatic stress disorder all may have played a key role in fueling Bales' actions. On Wednesday, Bales' attorney John Henry Brown accused military leadership of responsibility for sending Bales to war.
They should take responsibility for sending somebody to a high combat area who they knew had PTSD and post-traumatic and concussive head injury. He is disappointed, but he understands the gravity of the situation, and he's working with all of us to try to avoid the first military execution in 50 years.
Bales' pretrial hearing included video testimony from Afghans who survived the massacre, including several children who recalled watching their loved ones murdered. No date has been set for Bales' trial. The United Nations has issued a new appeal for $1.5 billion to aid those displaced by the fighting in Syria. The UN says critical assistance is needed for those inside Syria, as well as the refugees who fled to Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, Turkey, and Egypt. At a news conference in Geneva, 2 UN aid officials said Syria's turmoil continues to grow worse.
The violence in Syria is raging across the country, and there are nearly no more safe areas where people can flee and find safety, as most parts of the country have now become engulfed in violence, including in Damascus.
The combination of prolonged violence, the scale and scope of destruction, the winter that is already here has just intensified the urgency to scale up response.
The UN says its latest appeal for Syria marks its largest short-term humanitarian appeal ever, increasing its projections in Syria for at least the 4th time. The UN now warns the number of Syrian refugees will likely double to more than 1 million in the next 6 months. The Obama administration's blocked a UN Security Council resolution condemning Israel's latest expansion of settlements in the occupied West Bank. Israel's announced the construction of thousands of new settlement homes following last month's historic recognition of Palestine as a non-member observer state by the UN. The White House has publicly criticized Israel, but's refused to take punitive action, including withholding any of the billions in annual U.S. aid. On Wednesday, each member of the UN Security Council, except the United States, issued statements condemning the settlement expansion after the U.S. refused to accept a binding resolution. In his end-of-the-year news conference, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said Israel's undermining any remote chance of Middle East peace.
This is a near-fatal blow to very fragile Middle East process, peace process. You have seen my statement in the past, how many times I have been condemning this illegal settlement. This is clearly the violation of international law, and it is a violation of a quartet guidelines, and it is obstructing the Middle East peace process.
The State Department's head of security has resigned, and 3 other officials have been dismissed in the wake of an inquiry's findings on the September 11th attack on the U.S. mission in Benghazi, Libya, that killed U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans. An independent panel probing the incident found, quote, systemic failures in leadership and management deficiencies at senior levels within 2 State Department bureaus, resulting in security that was, quote, inadequate for Benghazi and grossly inadequate to deal with the attack that took place. Panel Vice Chair Admiral Mike Mullen unveiled the report's conclusions Wednesday.
The board found that the attacks in Benghazi were security-related, and responsibility for the loss of life, the injuries, and damage to U.S. facilities rests completely and solely with the terrorists who conducted the attacks. That does not mean there are not lessons to be learned. The board found that the security posture at the Special Mission Compound was inadequate for the threat environment in Benghazi, and in fact grossly inadequate to deal with the attack that took place that night.
Among the issues cited in the report is the high turnover rate of U.S. security staff, faulty security equipment, and the use of unreliable local militias. The report found certain senior State Department officials, quote, demonstrated a lack of proactive leadership and management ability, but did not recommend disciplinary action against any individuals. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's accepted all 29 of the panel's recommendations. Dozens of protesters turned out at a New Jersey port Tuesday to picket a container ship from Bangladesh carrying goods for the retail giant Walmart. The demonstration was called in the aftermath of last month's Tazreen factory fire in Bangladesh that killed more than 110 workers. The factory had been used to make Walmart apparel, and the company allegedly played a role in blocking the improvement of safety conditions there. Homeland Security and Port Police blocked the demonstrators from approaching the ship as it unloaded its cargo. The action came as the Bangladeshi government recommended criminal charges against the Tazreen factory's owner for, quote, unpardonable negligence leading up to the fire. Later in the broadcast, we'll look at the New York Times new expose, The Bribery Aisle, how Walmart got its way in Mexico. We'll speak with the Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times journalist David Barstow. And a new study is predicting that if current trends hold, fatalities caused by guns in the U.S. will likely exceed those caused by traffic incidents for the first time by 2015. According to Bloomberg News, while motor vehicle deaths dropped 22% from 2005 to 2010, firearm deaths are now on the rise from a low point in 2000. Based on a 10-year average trend, gun deaths will jump to almost 33,000 by 2015 a year, while auto deaths will drop to 32,000. Experts attribute the shift to public policy, including stricter vehicle standards, restrictions on young drivers, and a number of new safety laws. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country. And
thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.